thank you for joining me. I'm Samantha from Samantha's Respiratory World, and today we're going to be going over ABGs and how to interpret an ABG the easy way. So I'm going to give you some tips and tricks on how to do this, but first things first is we have to know our normal values. Okay, so these are the normal values. Okay, so the first value we're going to talk about that we look at is your pH. A normal pH is 7.35 to 7.45. Okay, the next value you're going to look at is your CO2. Your CO2 values are 35 to 45. And we're going to use our units of measurements. Your pH does not have a unit of measurement. And then your bicarb is 22 to 26. Okay, so we're going to talk about these first because this is going to be an easy way for you to remember and to help you interpret it, as you will see when we get going. So when I write it out like this, I'm going to put an arrow going to the left under pH. And here, I'm going to make it a different color so that way you can see it. So we're going to do red. So an arrow going to the left is always going to be acidic or acidosis. And let's do base in a different color. Let's do base in a blue. And then anything going to the right is going to be base, okay? And then since I'm already blue, I'm going to go ahead and go down here to CO2. On the CO2 now, anything that goes to the left is going to be your base or an alkalosis. And anything going to the right is your acid or your acidosis. And on your bicarbs, anything that goes to the left is your acid or your acidosis. And anything going to the right is going to be your base or your alkalosis. Okay? Now, I showed you in different colors. That way it's more easier to see. But if you look at the lower end values, you notice an ABA pattern. So this is something that I picked up on. As long as I could write out my values and know that one side was ABA, I knew the other side was opposite, meaning BAB. So that was just something that I learned as a quick trick. I wrote up my values, and then as soon as I did that, I did draw out these arrows just like you've seen, and I did put ABA, and then on the other side I put BAB. That way I knew exactly what direction I was going, and I didn't get my acids and my alkalosis confused, because that was very mind-boggling to me when learning this, and it's something that I really struggled with. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and talk about your PaO2. Alright, so your PaO2, it has different levels. There is your normal levels, which is 80 to 100. This is normal. Okay, and then you're going to have 60 to 79. And this is considered mild hypoxemia. Okay, color that we'll be able to see. So it was 40 to 59, and that is going to be your moderate hypoxemia. Okay, And then we have one more to do, which this last one is pretty simple. Anything less than 40 is going to be severe hypoxemia. All right. So I did it different colors. That way you could see the difference and it'll help you stay straight. I did a lot of color coordinating whenever I was learning different things that I've never done before in respiratory school, or if it was to help me like memorize certain things, I always color coordinated things. So this is just why I'm doing it in different colors, so that way you can kind of see that. Okay, so now we know our normal values when we're looking at a blood gas. So I'm going to come up with a blood gas, and then we're going to interpret it using our normal values. Okay. So, here is our blood gas. Okay, our first blood gas. This patient has a pH of a 715. The CO2 is 30. And then you have your bicarb as 20. And then you have your PaO2 that's at a 54 millimeters of mercury. All right, so let's break this down and talk about it. I'm going to get a different pen. I'm going to get a red color so that way you can see it. Okay, looking at your pH first. This is the first thing we always look at is your pH. What is your pH at on here on the normal range? It is going to the left, so that means that it is an acid. So I'm going to put an A underneath acid. So that way I know that's an acid. Then I'm going to look at your CO2. It's at a 30. Okay, looking at your normal values, it's going to the left as well, but this is considered a base. So I'm going to put a B. Okay. Finally, you're going to look at your bicarbs. It's at a 20. It's also going to the left. So this means that it's an acid. All right. And then just looking at your PaO2, you have a 54. That falls within the moderate range. So I'll just put mod right there, just like that. So looking back at the ABG, your pH, CO2, and HCO3, your pH is an acid. So what is making it an acid? So you're going to look at the other two numbers. Which one matches an acid? It's your bicarbs. Okay? So anytime you have bicarbs, it's a metabolic issue. And it's metabolic acidosis. And then this is with, and we're going to do the oxygen in just a minute. But first we're going to interpret the first part first, which is your pH and everything. So now we know it's a metabolic acidosis. Now we got to find out if it is compensated, partially compensated, or uncompensated. So to find that out, we know our pH is out of bounds. Okay? So we have to look at the other factor, which is your respiratory side, your CO2. Is that also out of bounds? Yes, it became a base. So therefore it is out of bounds. So that means it's trying to help compensate and bring your pH back up. So this would be a partially compensated metabolic acidosis with, and then we already know our oxygenation, and we said it was moderate. So with moderate hypoxemia. Okay? So that was pretty easy to figure that one out. Would you agree how we broke it down? It was a little bit easier. And the more you do it, the better the easier it will get for you. Okay, so now we're going to a clean page, but whenever I'm going to a clean page, I'm going to go ahead and rewrite, so we don't have to waste time and scroll up. I'm going to rewrite our values, our normal values. So I'm going to put pH 0.45 and CO2 35 to 45. And then your bicarb 22 to 26. And then over here, I'm going to just put PaO2 80 to 100. And then I'm going to put 79 to 60. And then also 59 to 40. And then less than 40. Oops, put that backwards. Whoops, 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 whoops. Sorry. Trying to write faster than what my brains want me to do. Okay, so there's our normal values again. Let me change my color. So now we have a different blood gas. This is a second patient that had a blood gas of a pH 7.45. Their CO2 range was at a 47. And then their bicarb was at a 26. And then their PaO2 is at a 74. Alright, so first things first, I'm going to go ahead and re-add our arrows up here. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and color code them so that way it makes it easier to see where we are going. Okay, so that didn't really take no time at all. So now we're going to interpret this blood gas, okay? Let me change colors. This time we will translate into an orange. Okay, so looking at their pH first, that's the first thing we're always going to look at. 7.45. That is considered normal. It is at the top end, but it's normal. Okay, so I'm going to put an N right there. Now looking at your CO2 next, it's at a 47. 47 is going to the right, so that means it's an acid and it's out of balance. So I'm going to put an A right there for acid. Okay, and then you're going to look at your bicarb, your HCO3. It's 26. That's a normal range, but it's going base, so I'm going to put normal. All right. So your pH is normal, and your CO2 is out of range, and your bicarbs are normal. So you have to figure out what your pH probably was before it went back into normal. So how we do this is we look at the scale. A 7.4 on your pH is considered perfect. Anything going to the left is considered an acid. So 7.39 and down is considered an acid. Anything going above it, 7.41, and going to the right is going to be considered a base. This is just talking about your pH. So this is 7.45, so it's leaning towards the base side. So I'm going to put /base. Looking at your bicarb, it's the same thing. Your perfect number is 24 in the center. Anything 23, 22 and lower going to the left is going to be an acid. 25, 26 going to the right of this number is going to be a base. So this is normal leaning base. So we had a metabolic problem, but it was fixed because of our CO2 came out of range to help fix it. So this is how we're going to interpret this. First things first is it was a metabolic, and it was an alkalosis. I'm going to put with. And then, like we said, it is fully compensated. So, because it has a normal pH, and everything else is normal except for your respiratory, your CO2. So, we're going to put fully compensated metabolic alkalosis with, what is our oxygen? 74. What range does that fall in? Okay, so 74, that falls in the range of your mild, 60 to 79. So we're going to put with mild hypoxemia. Okay, and that will be that one. Alright, so now we're going to move to another blood gas. Change colors. So now we have a patient with a pH of 7.56 and then a CO2 of a 32, and then your bicarb is going to be 22. And then your PaO2 is 80. Alright, so now we got to solve this one. So let me change my color. This time we're going to do it in blue. Blue and purple. Alright, so looking at your pH first. Okay. So your pH is a 7.56. That is definitely base. Okay? It's going to the right. So it's a base. Now we're going to look at your CO2. That is a 32. So 32, that is going to the left, which makes it a base. It's out of range. Then you're going to look at your HCO3, it's 22. And 22, that is normal. That's within the normal range. So I'm going to put an N right there. Okay, and then now you can kind of look at your PaO2, 80. What range does that fall into? It's normal. Okay, so now we got to interpret this ABG. So first things first, what matches the pH being a base? It's your respiratory side, okay? Your respiratory side is also a base. So we know, let me write it up a little bit closer so we don't waste space. So we know it's a respiratory alkalosis with, and we'll finish that out. Now we got to see if it has been helped or not helped, because we already know it's out of range. So in order to see if it's helped or not helped, we have to look at our bicarb. Did our bicarb come out of range? No, it did not come out of range. It's close, but it's not there yet. So that means that we have a uncompensated respiratory alkalosis with, and then we said our oxygenation was normal. So we'll put with normal oxygenation. Okay? And that's all that one is. So this patient is uncompensated respiratory alkalosis with normal oxygenation. All right? So now we're going to move to another blood gas. Okay? This patient has a pH of 7.24. Their CO2 is at a 69 millimeters of mercury. And then their bicarb is at a 27. And then their PaO2 is, 43. You see that 43 and think, oh, wow, that's pretty low. So we're going to go ahead and interpret this blood gas. Okay, looking at your pH first, 7.24. It's going to the left, so that means it is an acid. Next, you're going to look at your CO2 number, 69. That is going to the right, so that makes it an acid. Then you're going to look at your bicarb. It's 27. 27 is out of range. It is also going to the right, which makes it a base. And then just looking at your oxygen, it's 43. So 43 range, that will put it at a moderate. Okay? So now we're ready to interpret our ABG. So to interpret our ABG, first things first, we got to look to see what matches our pH. We know it's an acid. So which other one is an acid? Is it your CO2 or your bicarb? It's your CO2. So we know now the problem is respiratory. But this time it's an acid. So it's an acidosis. Put with right there. Now, to find out if it's compensated or not compensated or partially compensated, we have to look at our bicarb. Did our bicarb come out of range? Yes. So it is trying to help bring back the pH in a normal balance. So with it being out of balance as well and trying to help, we know we have a partially compensated respiratory acidosis with, we have to look at our oxygenation. It's a moderate, so we'll put moderate hypoxemia. And there you go. You just did another ABG. Is this one, this patient had a partially compensated respiratory acidosis with moderate hypoxemia. All right, so ran out of paper, so we're going to bring up a new paper. So that means we're going to have to rewrite out our normal values. So normal pH is a 7.35, 7.45. CO2 is 35 to 45. Your bicarb is 22 to 26. Okay, and then your PaO2, you have 80 to 100. You have 60 to 79. And then you have 40 to 59. And then you have less than 40. All right. And then we got to do our arrows so that way we can stay straight. So we're going to do acid, acid, acid. Change it again. Let's see. We'll do this one. And this way will be base, base, base. Ooh, how did that erase? Okay, base. There we go. So now we're going to write out another ABG. So that's our normals. So our next ABG, I'm only going to do 3 more with you guys. Okay, so hang in there. You're doing great. So now you have a pH of a 7.37, a CO2 of 69, and then you have a bicarb of 25, and then you have your PaO2 of a 58. Okay, so first things first, to interpret it, you're going to look at your pH, 7.37. That is within a normal range, so I'm going to write normal underneath that. Next, we're going to look at your CO2, 69. 69 is going to the right, so that makes it an acid. Okay, now we're going to look at your bicarb number, 25. 25, that's within a normal range. Okay, and then oxygenation is at a 58. That will put it at a moderate range. Okay, so this patient has a normal ABG. Okay, well, remember their pH is normal, so remember we have to look up here and put a 7.4 because that's the perfect number at our pH. And anything that goes to the left is an acid. Anything that goes to the right is a base. So 7.37, that is going to the left. So this is leaning acid. Okay. So I put N and then I put a slash A. So I know it's normal, but it's leaning acid. Look at your 25. Like I said, 24 is your perfect number. Anything less than 24 is going toward your acid side. Anything greater than 24 is going to be a base. So this is going to the right of the 24, going up higher, so it's going to be leaning base. So now we got to see which one matches your pH as an acid. So that would be your respiratory. So this is a respiratory problem. It's a respiratory acidosis. All right, and I'm going to put a with. Okay, so now it is a normal pH. So with it being a normal pH, we can say that it is fully compensated respiratory acidosis with what type of oxygenation problem? They have moderate hypoxemia. Okay. Now, what's funny about this is because their CO2 is high, but they're fully compensated. And you may think they need help with their oxygenation. But this patient right here is a classic patient that you will see. This patient right here is a COPD patient. This is your COPD patient. They're retainers of CO2, but their bodies are used to it, so that's why their pH is always going to be found to be normal. Okay? And you might think they need help because their PO2 is at a 58. But a COPD patient, blood gas, a normal blood gas for them, has a range of 55 to 60 for being normal oxygenation for them. Okay? This disease process is a total different ball game when you're looking at your ABGs and what to do for these patients, because when you try to fix this oxygenation issue, because you think it's an oxygenation issue, and you don't realize it's a COPD patient, you're going to blunt their respiratory drive and cause them to crash and cause them to have a more excessive CO2 because they're going to blunt their respiratory drive. They're not going to be breathing off the CO2, and it's just going to start climbing. So therefore, it's very important we do not over-oxygenate our COPD patients. That's why they are normally on 28% of oxygen or lower. And depending on the device, you will use either a nasal cannula on a COPD patient, or you will use an air entrainment mask. On the test, this is a little golden nugget. When you are dealing with a COPD patient and you're having to pick what oxygen device to use, you have to look at the patient scenario. Is the patient stable or unstable? That is the deciding factor on what device to use. If your respiratory patient is stable and they have their normal COPD patient and they're stable, then you're going to put them on a nasal cannula. Okay? But if they are unstable, which means they have a high heart rate, their respiratory rate is high, they're sweaty, things that make a patient unstable, they're having a hard time breathing, they're having slight retractions, then you're going to put them on an air entrainment mask at 28%, because that gives us a fixed FiO2 of 28. Okay? So that's the difference. That's when you know what you'll pick. And if it's a total emergency situation where it's a COPD patient and you're having to bag a COPD patient, that is when you're going to give them 100% oxygenation, is when they're having to be bagged. So if it's an emergency situation and they're having to do CPR on a COPD patient, then you're going to use 100% oxygen, 100% FiO2 while you're bagging them. If they are unstable, but they're breathing on their own and they're awake and alert, then you're going to give them an air entrainment mask, 28% FiO2, or it can be less. Okay? So just look for that difference and see. And if they are stable and they just need a little bit of help, then you're going to use a nasal cannula. So that will be very helpful and beneficial for you when you're looking at tests and seeing this, and especially it's going to be on the CSE when you're having to pick the devices and what you would use. And so this was what helped me decide what device to use. You're going to see a lot of COPD on there, just to let y'all know. All right, so moving on to the next patient. We only have 2 more patients to take care of. So our next patient, these last 2 are going to be kind of tricky. You will not see this on the boards, but you could see this in the classroom with your professors because they will try to trip you up. So you have a pH of 7.56, CO2 of 29, and you have a bicarb that is 27, and you have a PaO2 of 62. Okay, let's look at this and break it down. pH first. 7.56. Okay. So 7.56, that is going to the right. So it's going to be a base. Now we got to look at our CO2 number. 29. That's going to the left. It's going down. So that is also a base. Now looking at your bicarb. 27, that is going to the right, and it's outside of the range, so it is also a base. Let's go ahead and look at your PaO2 of 62. What range does that fall in? That falls in your mild range. So now let's interpret this. What matches your pH of a base? Your CO2 is a base. Your bicarbs are a base. They're all 3 bases. Okay? So you're probably thinking, well, how do I know what happened first? Because you don't know. Okay? So anytime you have all 3 that are the same, bases or acids, This is known as a, let me write it up a little closer. This is known as a mixed alkalosis with, and then you're going to go ahead and fill out your oxygenation with mild hypoxemia. So, and that's all there is to this one. It's just a mixed alkalosis with mild hypoxemia. I've never seen a blood gas like this, and I have not seen a blood gas like this on a test other than in my classrooms. I have noticed professors throw these on there, trying to throw you off of your game and make you really think outside the box. But it is just a mixed alkalosis with mild hypoxemia. And that's all there is to that patient. Now we're going to look at our next patient. They have a pH of 7.30, CO2 of 49, and you have a bicarb of 21, and you have a PaO2 of 75. Okay, first things first, looking at your pH. Change colors. Let's go orange. So orange, 7.3, that is going to the left, it's going down, so it's going acid. Okay, next one is your CO2, 49. That is going up, so on CO2, when it goes up, we know that it is an acid. Last one is your bicarbs, 21. It is trending down. It's out of range. It's trending down. So that is an acid. Now we're going to look at your PO2 and go ahead and interpret that. 75. What range is 75 in? That will be mild. So to interpret this, it is, can you guess? You have a pH of an acid. CO2 is an acid. Bicarbs are acid. All three are acids. So therefore, it has to be a mixed acidosis with mild hypoxemia. All right. And that's all there is to it, guys. Like I said, the last two that we did together, I've never seen it on a patient ever. I'm not saying it can't happen. I've never seen it for myself. But I've seen this on like my professor's test. And they will just throw it on there to just try to throw you off. You don't have to worry about it other than classrooms. And I mean, I guess there could be always a chance you could see it in the clinical setting somewhere. But in 2 years, I have never seen a blood gas like this. Even looking at other patients that other students had and, you know, trying to help them interpret their blood gases, I've never seen a blood gas like these two. So it's just something that you could probably see in the classroom. But anyways, I hope this is very helpful for you. And like I said, just keep going over it. And the more you do, the more practice you get, the better it will be. And there's a website you can go to. It's called ABG Ninja. And I will actually make a video over how to use ABG Ninja. It kind of teaches you how to interpret it as well and gives you random ABGs. And it explains it to you on a deeper level. So that way you can understand it. I didn't quite understand it. I just played around with it and stuff. But I didn't start catching on to ABGs until my second, third semester. And then by my fourth semester, I started trying to interpret ABGs without writing down my values and things like that. That was really tricky. It took me a little while to be able to do that. But by the time I was ready to graduate, I'm able to look at an ABG, interpret it, and know what it is now. And so yeah, so don't make it too hard. Just take it step by step. Don't be scared to write down your normal values and putting your arrows in. That's what I did to help myself. And as long as you are doing great and passing your classes and you're able to do that, then that's all that matters. So just keep on doing it and you're going to get there. Good luck, and I hope this was helpful. Y'all have a wonderful day, guys. Thank you.